Regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Cottonwood, Arizona, will be held September 1st, 2020 at 6 p.m. If we could please have the Deputy Clerk take the roll.
Councilmember Wilden.
Here.
Councilmember Henry.
Here.
Councilmember Halls.
Here.
Councilmember Naren.
Here.
Vice Mayor Matthews.
Here.
And Mayor Linsky.
Here, thank you.
And Councilmember Howergy is absent.
All right, next on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance, so please stand and join me in the pledge. Pledge of Allegiance. All right, next is a brief summary of current events by Mayor, City Council, and/or City Manager. Does any council member have anything to report this evening?
I do, just one. So our city manager, deputy city manager, and other attended the airport master plan committee. We had our kickoff meeting just recently and discussed and brainstormed some of the like a SWOT analysis like we've done at past city council meetings, which was useful and informative. And just as a fun aside related to the airport, Councilmember Wilden and I attended a meeting of the Verde Valley Flyers, which they're just they're not meetings, they're coffee chats, and you can meet with the aviation enthusiasts every Saturday at the airport at 8 o'clock. There's coffee, and the group that was there this at the time that we went had just a tremendous amount of collective knowledge, experience, history with aviation, and it was I thought it was a really neat experience. So,
Any other council members?
Just one quick note on the quarterly NACOG meeting. We just had the CARES gave a big chunk of money to the Economic Development Commission for NACOG, which hopefully will trickle down and do us some good here. So.
Excellent. Mr. Corbin, have you got anything to report?
Mr. Mayor, Council, I do. I was trying to follow up on Councilmember Hendry's comments. We are going to be having a public forum as our next task for the airport master plan update. So stay tuned. If you didn't receive an email, we sent it out today to several folks, and it's just an opportunity for the community to comment on the airport. So we're going to be getting the word out over the next couple of weeks, but I believe it's later in September when they have that meeting. So I'll get that date out. The city will be hosting another blood drive on September 8th from 10 to 3 at our Cottonwood Public Safety Building. Those wishing to donate must register ahead of time online at redcrossblood.org. We have only 3 spots left. And I believe there were over 40 appointments, and we're down to just 3. So if you want to donate locally here at Cottonwood, get online and register. Great turnout from the community. The police department just received $25,000 from the Arizona Attorney General's office from a statewide settlement. Those funds will be used to purchase new mobile data computers. Cottonwood Fire and Medical Department received $6,500 for COVID-related expenses from the Northern Arizona Emergency Medical Services Council. This council is one of 4 regional EMS councils established by the Arizona Department of Health Services, Bureau of EMS. The council received $120,000 in totals, which was then distributed to local fire and EMS response agencies. These funds will be utilized to purchase COVID-related personal protective equipment for our personnel. So thank you to the COVID response from the feds on that. September is National Library Card Sign-Up Month. A reminder that library card registration for the Cottonwood Public Library can now be done online at ctwpl.info. As a plug for our library, you can get online books for free. You don't have to pay all those outrageous fees. So get your library card, get signed up, and get down there and use our free services. The police department will be offering sworn members the ability to participate in No Shave September, October, and November. So if you see our officers out there with a beard or a goatee, don't get worried. It's on purpose. Funds generated in October will be combined with sales of our pink police patches and donated to help fight cancer. Remaining No Shave proceeds will go to updating the Public Safety Fitness Center. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
All right, very good, thank you. Okay, next is approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of August 18, 2020. And I'll go ahead and motion that we approve those minutes.
Second.
Okay, Mayor made the motion, Councilmember Henry seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, minutes are approved. And now we go into unfinished business. There's just one item tonight. It's ordinance number 683, amending the zoning ordinance by amending section 411 AR 43 zone, agricultural residential D5, and section 412 AR 20 zone, agricultural residential D5. And this is the second and final reading.
I'm handling that one, Mr. Mayor, because there's been no comments or input from the community. So unless there are changes from the presentation that staff gave, Gary and Jim are here to answer questions, but we received no public comments or additional questions.
All right, great. And I think council was all pretty much in favor of this, so we're ready for a motion.
Motion? I move to approve ordinance number 683.
Second.
Okay, Vice Mayor made the motion, Councilmember Nairn seconded it. If we could have the Deputy Clerk take a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Henry,
Yes.
Councilmember Hulse,
Yes.
Councilmember Nairn,
Yes.
Councilmember Wilden,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Matthews,
Yes.
Mayor Linsky,
Yes.
and motion carried.
Great. If you would please read ordinance number 683 by title only.
Ordinance number 683, an ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, amending the zoning ordinance by amending sections 411 AR 43 zone, agricultural residential D5, and section 412 AR 20 zone, agricultural residential D5. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next is the consent agenda. The following items are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the council and will be approved by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or a citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence. So we have just two items tonight on the consent agenda. Item one is authorization to submit an application to the State Historic Preservation Office for 2020 Certified Local Government Historic Preservation Pass-Through Grant. Item two is liquor license application 009 Liquor Store. For Kim K. Kwiatkowski, applicant for Circle K, store number 9527, located at 1500 East Mingus Avenue. Is there a member of the public or council that would like to have an item pulled? All right, then I would move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, Mayor made the motion. I don't know who seconded it. Was it Councilmember Henry? Seconded it. And all in favor? Aye. All right, consent agenda is approved. And now we go into new business. Two items tonight. Following items are for discussion, consideration, and possible legal action. First up is ordinance number 685, amending Title 8, Health and Safety of the Municipal Code by deleting Chapter 8.12, Nuisance Abatement, in its entirety and adding a new Chapter 8.12, Nuisance Abatement. This is the first reading.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. So this is going to be a complete change of the nuisance abatement, Chapter 8.12. We did this presentation at the work session a couple weeks back. I don't know where to point it. Okay, sorry. So originally this was brought to City Council at the strategic retreat back in December of 2020, where we had made a presentation on some of our more egregious properties inside the City Cottonwood city limits, and did a presentation and got some guidance from you guys in moving forward. And so what we're bringing back today with this change out is part of the strategic retreat feedback. From the strategic retreat, we developed a group called the Safe Housing Group. This is a group that's made up of various different departments, including our building, planning, fire, police department, city attorney, and city prosecution, along with administration. And we meet and discuss ways that we can improve these areas and help the community, including displacing family members or people that are inside of these structures. The goal here is, again, to improve the community as a whole, and it's to help everybody to get these places that are safety hazards fixed up and either torn down and to help the people that are in these places find appropriate housing. So the amendments to Chapter 8.12, there were a lot. Specifically, we did take out the definition of leasee, occupant, and owner, and we replaced it with the definition for responsible party. And the reason for this was we wanted to be sure that we were including anybody that had a legal interest in the property. So that's not always a owner or an occupant or a lessee. It could also be somebody in probate or somebody that has a power of attorney. And because we didn't have that, we thought by using the words responsible party and defining it, that we would be able to achieve that. In section 8.12020, we removed the places of rubbish, trash, weeds, filth, or debris with the word accumulation. And this was a change brought to us by our city prosecutor, who said in situations like this, the word places means that we would have to physically see them place that on the property in order for us to move forward with any sort of legal tie to it. So accumulation was the word that he wanted us to replace there, which makes more sense, as you don't have to physically see him place it there or them place it there. The next change we did is we added some rewording in there in regards to timeframes by using a date that was set for within the notice. And the reason for this is, in the code originally, we had this 30-day period that we had to adhere to, but there's a lot of situations where our building official and our building codes allow us to have a smaller time frame, not to exceed that 30 days, but allows us to get into some of these properties where it's imminent, that we have to do something. We either have to tag it right then and there, we have to do it for the people that are living there, or just because it could fall and be a big safety issue for the public. The next change that we made, we took out and replaced the assessment, notice of assessment, because we already addressed that in another chapter. And what we did add is the emergency abatement of violations by the city. We did not have a section in our existing code for emergency abatement processes and procedures. And so this is an addition. In section 8.12110, we did a title change for the annual installment of assessments. And again, we replaced this section with a new one for the interference with enforcement, transfer of property, and fraudulent transfer. Again, our code didn't address when we have situations where somebody might do a property transfer in the middle of some sort of legal process on a property. And again, the annual installments of assessments and liens is addressed in another chapter. So in summary, the idea here with this change out of the code was to streamline our process. It's to give us a good flow from beginning to end and gives us that guidance. It increases the accountability of property owners and responsible parties to do something in these situations where we need abatement. And then it also gives us a guideline for a funding source so that if at some point the city abatement program will end up paying for itself, and then also will generate a little bit more so that we have that money, that it's not coming out of the general fund. These are a couple of dilapidated structures that we've shown in the past. Both of these buildings had families and people and children living in them prior to us tagging it as unsafe. These are also still standing today. These are two abandoned structures where you'll see that we have the one on my left. That one has been torn down today, so now it's a vacant piece of land. And the one on the right is one where we are in a situation where it's in probate, and we don't have somebody that we can legally tie to it to move forward in our process. So these changes would help us to be able to address that property right there. That's it. Any questions?
All right, very good. Any questions? I know we went over this at great length last month, but I just want to say, these changes all make perfect sense, and I think they're really going to help clean up our community and put people in safer situations than they're otherwise living in currently. None of these changes that you've suggested would have been possible if the planning department wasn't working in concert with code enforcement, who wasn't working in concert with our city attorney, who wasn't working in concert with the magistrate, and our city prosecutors. All of you guys are working together for the betterment, again, of our community. I just really appreciate the communication. Anything else from council? This is just a first reading, so there's no action tonight. We'll bring it back here in a couple of weeks for a vote. Thank you. All right, if we could have the deputy clerk then read ordinance number 685 by title only.
Ordinance number 685, an ordinance of the mayor and city council of the city of Cottonwood, Yavapai County, Arizona, amending Title 8, Health and Safety of the Municipal Code by deleting Chapter 8.12, Nuisance Abatement in its entirety and adding a new Chapter 8.12, Nuisance Abatement. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I think I may have not thanked our building official, Paul Hodges. It wasn't on purpose, sir. We appreciate you too.
Mr. Mayor, I'll just add, I never want to seem like I'm sucking up, but this is really an alignment from City Council setting policy and goals at a retreat to the whole city coming together and working together. And we have a fantastic team, everybody from Mr. Horton to Mick over in the prosecutor's office to the judicial team, Judge Kelly working on to community development, our code enforcement officers from Paul and Steve and Christy, everybody working together. It's just one of those examples that it started with a clear vision from you guys, what you wanted to have occur, and they made it happen. And so I agree with you. It's a great team working together, setting egos aside and just getting the job done. And so I really, really appreciate it.
Okay, last item under new business is discussion and possible approval of a proposal to grant an additional one-time floating holiday to full-time city employees to be used by December 31st, 2020.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Kirsten Lennon, Financial Services Director, and here tonight to request from you to allow us to give 8 hours of additional floating holiday to our full-time employees that would need to be used before December 31st. With the pandemic, a lot of businesses and organizations completely closed their doors and quit working, but during that time, a lot of our city employees continued to work, if not in the office, at home, with doors closed, no public, but we all continue to work. We really need to thank our public safety personnel and our communications and our courts and our transit departments that stayed open the whole entire time and provided services. And all of our other organizations, our support staff, especially planning and zoning, who we forgot to mention in our communication. Sorry. We tried to make sure we covered everybody because everybody continued to contribute and help our citizens behind the scenes in whatever way we could. This is not a free way to benefit our employees, but an inexpensive way, because by giving them an additional holiday, they would have been paid for that day anyway. For working, they just get to take that day off and stay home instead. And that is why we're asking for an additional 8 hours of floating time that can float between now and the end of the calendar year.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just add one thing to clarify expectations. This has nothing to do with replacing our evaluation of compensation in the winter. Whenever we can get those numbers closer, remember we set money aside in our grant funding to evaluate where we came in at our revenue. So this is not meant Like we're not forecasting bad news, and so we want to do that. No, this is unrelated. This was just something the team was talking about, and we thought a good way to just say thank you that is pretty inexpensive. The only cost would be if there was a backfill. I talked to Chief Kirkendall from the fire department today, and he said that doesn't happen. He manages overtime very well, so he's not expecting any cost at this. So then it would be communications sometimes because they have mandatory staffing levels and a few departments like that. But there will be minimal at best cost in overtime to cover the time off.
All right, council discussion.
Fully support it.
I agree. I think it's a good idea. It's a way to thank employees for their efforts during this time of uncertainty.
And I'm in favor as well. I've always been in favor of thanking employees any way you can that's not really too monetary. And it's obviously been physically and mentally difficult these last few times, so this is a great way to thank them.
All right. Yeah, I would agree. I think we all know Ron pushes his employees hard.
I do, and
Wave
and
driver.
we work hard as a team. Paul, just because she said planning and zoning, so Paul's in that department, but he's building official. But his team was also working during the pandemic. We never stopped for construction. It was just another. We never stopped transit totally. We never stopped, of course, PD, Public Works. You know, there's a few offices we closed down, the rec center, the library, those kinds of things. But everybody else kept working straight through it, including Paul's team.
Right, and you know, again, I'm just so proud of so many of our employees and managers here who were able to pivot the way they provided service to the community. The highlight, of course, I think in my mind at least, is the court and what they did to ensure that they did not close down, that they were still able to provide the same level, better level of service, in my opinion, than they were previously, and now aren't facing a backlog of cases that they have to try to shuffle through. So really, my hats go off to all of you.
Mr. Mayor, I'll add to that. Judge Kelly's done a superb job, and I believe she's implemented some of those changes she implemented, she's keeping in place because they ended up working so well. Another department that kept running through the pandemic. The list goes on. They're just a great bunch of employees.
Okay, well, seems like we're ready for a vote then on this.
I move to approve granting an additional floating holiday to full-time city employees to be used no later than December 31st, 2020.
Second.
Okay, we had Councilmember Nairn make the motion and Councilmember Wilden seconded it. And roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Henry.
Yes.
Councilmember Hulse.
Yes.
Councilmember Nairn.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilden.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Matthews.
Yes.
Mayor Linsky.
Yes.
And motion carried.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I would move we pay the claims.
Second.
Okay, Mayor made the motion, Councilmember Hulse seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And next on the agenda is the annual review of the city attorney. And we have the right to go into executive session, which is the part of the meeting where we kick everybody out, but the attorney and the council. So thanks all of you for being here. Appreciate it.